Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about post-adoption contact with biofamily, specifically for children in foster care, but I suppose it could apply to other types of adoption as well. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, then stick around. But first, if you are new here, my name is Ana Leonora. Together with my husband, Jason, we are foster and adoptive parents in real life. And here on my channel, From the Fosters, we do foster parenting, adoptive parenting, millennial parenting, life together. And we raise awareness for the foster care system. So if any of that interests you, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel down below so that you can join my growing family here on YouTube. And while you're down there, if you want to hit your post notification bell and set your notifications to all, you won't miss when I post any new videos like this. So let's just get right into it today. I'm going to try to keep this one pretty brief. Should there or can there be contact with biological family members post-adoption? Again, specifically when it comes to children being adopted from foster care, because that is my experience as an adoptive mother. I adopted my children from foster care. So that's my main experience, but I suppose this could apply to other types of adoptions as long as they are open adoptions. If it's a closed adoption, then it's a closed adoption, and obviously there would be no contact. But in an open or a semi-open adoption, this could apply as well. So there are studies out there that have shown that it has better outcomes for the adoptee if they are able to have some contact with family, if they're able to have some relationship or connection to their biological family, to their heritage, to who they are. So it is encouraged when you adopt from foster care. It is encouraged in most situations. It's not always possible. There are situations where the child was in such danger, not only just at the hands of their biological parents, but potentially other family members as well were involved in whatever happened to that child, that any contact with biofamily could be deemed unsafe for that child. And while we want to try to continue to foster relationships with the biofamily when it's safe, as the adoptive parent, one of your main roles is keeping that child safe, right? And even if it's not ideal to not have any contact with biological family, sometimes in some cases that is the better option. So if you've been here for a little while, you know that we have two little boys that we adopted from foster care back in January of 2022. They were two separate cases. They do have two totally different stories, but we were able to adopt them at the same time, which was super cool. We have contact with one biological family and we do not have contact with the other. So in the case of our son, whose biological family we have no contact with, while he was in foster care, I'm not sure if those court orders stay in place now that he's been adopted, but of course his name has changed and his biological family has never been provided our name, our address. They don't know his new name. And so they don't know where he is or who he is anymore. But when he was in foster care, there was a no contact order in place. Nobody in his family was actually allowed to have any contact with him, and they were also not allowed to know who we were for his safety. For his safety, we are continuing the no contact, whether there is an actual agreement in place or not. With the court, I'm not sure if that carries through now that his name has changed and all of that. I'm not sure. But we are continuing with that because, again, his family does not know who we are. We know who they are and we know how to get in touch with them. If he is old enough and safe enough at that point and ever wants to be in touch with them, we have the ability to do that. And we also were given permission by his family members through DSS. They didn't give it to us directly because, again, they don't know who we are, but they did tell social services that they would be interested in future contact with him if it was something he was interested in and if it was allowed, all of those things. So there's a lot of nuances there. But for his safety, as much as I would love for him to know who he is, where he comes from. For his safety while he's little, there is no contact with any biological family for him. We were given some information on his mom and dad, which will be shared with him when he is age appropriate for that information. And, we're always open to doing something like a DNA test, like a 23andMe or Ancestry, if that's something he's interested in. And again, we have the ability to find his parents because we know who they are when he's old enough, if he decides that that's something he wants to do. Now, he may not, given his story, he may not want to, or he may want to, but that's going to be, a decision that he can make when he is old enough to do so. But that's not the norm. It certainly happens. There are times where, sorry, my cat is clawing at the door again. So if you hear some weird noises in the background, that's what that is. There certainly are times where contact should not happen. But there's also times where, the majority of the time, where some level of continued contact is safe and appropriate, even if not with the biological parents. Maybe there's grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, older siblings. There's all kinds of relationships that can be formed that weren't maybe necessarily with the bio parents. Of course, if you can have a safe relationship with the bio parents, that's wonderful, but that's not always possible. However, you can sometimes forge these relationships with these other biological family members just to help keep the child tied to and connected with their birth family and their sort of story. So when that's possible, that's a beautiful thing. I've heard of a lot of people who, maybe their kids don't see their bio parents, but they do see bio grandparents, or they do see bio siblings, older siblings, things like that. In our other case, we actually do, if you've been following us, we do have contact with our other child's bio parents. We also have the ability to be in contact with one of his grandparents. However, she lives all the way on the other side of the country and has not known him since he was a baby. So we have her contact information, and if he ever wants a relationship with her, that door is certainly open. But we are fortunate that we have a decent relationship with his birth parents. Now, we have had to go less contact since the adoption, per recommendations from his therapist and his team, because he's still so young, he doesn't really understand. And everyone who's kind of around him with his mental health, his doctors, his therapists, his, guardian ad litem when she was still in the picture, everyone just sort of feels like, for the sake of his mental health and his understanding and comprehension of what's going on, that he needs to have very minimal contact with them at this time. But we have their address. Do you guys see that? Look at this cat. This is the noise you're hearing if you hear that in the background. My cats, y'all. If you've been here a while, my cats are just absolutely ridiculous. What was I saying? We had to go more minimal contact than we had prior. Stop it. We had to go more minimal contact than we had prior to the adoption being finalized. They were still getting monthly supervised visits with him prior to the adoption being finalized. However, they don't exactly live around the corner from us. My husband and I both work full time. Plus we have him and now another kid, and we just have a lot going on. So for us to supervise a visit ourselves without the Department of Social Services being able to facilitate that is very challenging because they don't live right in our community. So that's challenging, but we will continue to do in-person visits with them at some point. However, we have had to pull back on them for now just because the adoption is so fresh, and per the recommendations of his doctors and therapists, mental health providers, medication management, it's kind of been a whole team in agreement that he needs to not have any contact with them himself for a little while until he fully grasps the finality of the adoption. So we're not doing phone calls or in-person visits with them for now. And I'm not entirely sure how long that'll last, but that will be something that we will continue to have conversations with, his providers, his medical and mental health providers on. But at some point we will resume in-person visits. They won't be monthly, because that's just not feasible for us. But we would like him to be able to see them, especially at big things like birthdays, holidays, stuff like that. But in the meantime, to keep up our relationship with them and to keep the bond, so to speak, going, we have their address and we are opening a P.O. box. They are not supposed to have our address for safety reasons. I think it's possible if you adopt from foster care for the bio families to have your address. Some people choose to do that, but it's not always the safest option for all parties involved. So they won't get our home address, but we are going to open a P.O. box. And we have their home address, and we will be sending them letters, pictures, some of his schoolwork, and things like that. And then, of course, they'll be able to send letters and pictures and things back. So that way we will be able to keep lines of communication open while also allowing him to take a step back and focus on the fact that this is now his legal family, that it is permanent. He won't be going home to them. We've had a lot of those conversations with him, but he's so young. It's just very challenging for them to accept it. Adoption comes with a lot of trauma. And again, the decision to pull back on contact was not made lightly, and it was per recommendations of people who understand his physical and mental health better than I do. But we will continue to have contact with them as long as they will allow it and as long as he's comfortable with it. Now, if at some point he gets older and he tells us that he wants to slow down contact or stop contact, we have to respect that. We are his parents first and foremost, and we have to do right by him. What we think is right by him for now is to maintain some level of contact because they are his birth parents and we do have a good relationship with them. So why would we not, unless he tells us otherwise? Which he's still too young to make a decision like that. But when he's old enough to fully understand and conceptualize what happened to him, why he's with us, and kind of the intricacies of that, if at that point he tells us he doesn't want contact, we will respect his wishes. You will sometimes also get children who are older, teenagers, who, if the contact is still safe, as the adoptive parents, you may wish to try to keep that contact, but they're teenagers, and if they tell you they don't want the contact, that's just something you're going to have to figure out between you and your kid and their bio families. It's going to be a case-by-case situation, but I will say there's a lot of studies that have shown that when you can have some level of maintained contact and maintained relationship with biological family members, there's better mental health outcomes for the adoptees. So if you can find someone, if it's not the birth parents, hopefully it's the birth parents, but if it's not the birth parents, hopefully there's a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, an older sibling, somebody somewhere that you can maintain contact with. That is preferred. And when you're able to do that, it's a really beautiful thing. And it's just better for everybody all around. But it's not always possible. So just keep that in mind when you're adopting, that you want to do what's in the best interest for your child, and that as much as sometimes you maybe don't want to maintain contact with anyone in the bio family, just remember that it is beneficial for your child in the long run if you can find somebody safe to do so with. If there's nobody safe, then you have to do what's truly in the best interest of your child and go no contact. But if you can find somebody safe in the family to have contact with, it's so much better for the kids. This cat, I swear. On this note, I'm gonna wrap this video up. I clearly need to get this cat outside before he knocks my door down. If you have any questions about it, leave them down below. I will try to answer as many as I can. Contact is not required, but it is suggested when it's safe to do so. Otherwise, I hope you got something out of this video. I'm sorry I had to keep cutting to my cat. He's so distracting. Look at him being all cute now. If you got anything out of this video, hit the like button for me. Leave any questions, comments down below. As always, until next time, I love you guys. Go out and continue to shine your light into the world. Bye.